What's going on, guys? My name is Electroshock Medina, and I'm going to be giving you this review of the Traktor Kontrol S2 MK2. Now, I'm going to go through all the functionalities and all of the good mechanics that this controller has to offer, such as it has a built-in digital audio interface system, so you're allowed to preview the music before you play it live to the audience. And I'll show you how that works. So, if we look over here, give it some light. Okay, right there, this is to plug in your headphones so you can preview the music. Now, the way how you will plug in here is that you will get a quarter jack plug that I have right here. You could buy one of these like in a Radio Shack or Best Buy or something. So then what you would do next is you would just plug it in right here. Now once it's there, as you can see, I have a pair of headphones here. You just get the headphones plug in and just plug in right there. Now over here, this is to control the amount of the volume of the preview that you're going to have coming into your headphones. And over here, this is how much of the preview you want to hear from each side of the tracks that you are queuing, whether if you're queuing the track from deck B to the right or from deck A to the left. Okay, and then over here we have mic engage, which is to initially turn on the mic, and that would be in the back to plug in the mic, and I'll show you that in just a moment. Over here you'll see that you have your USB plug-in, so you can plug in directly to the laptop. You also get in the box an AC adapter for the controller, but you don't really need it. I mean, it's powerful enough already when you plug it in with the USB directly into your computer. Okay. Over here, let me put more focus. These are your outputs. So this is your main outputs to any sound system. Like, let's say if you're DJing in a club, ideally you would have these as your outputs. And some cables that I would suggest to plug into like any club sound system or just some speakers at home is to use RCA cables such as these that I have here. So these are these RCA cables that they ideally go together into one line-in cable. And pretty much the way how you would plug in is, for example, right here, you put the red with the red and the blue with the white. It's essentially the same thing. So I'll show you how that works. Okay. So then from here, let's say if you're going to plug in to the club sound system, what you want to do is you'll have this cable here, right? And sometimes they might have another lining cable just like this to plug into your system, but if you don't have a way of plugging in directly, I would suggest using a bridge such as this, and you would plug in directly to the cable right here. Okay, so here you are, and then now let's say the club wants to plug into your system. What you would do is you would take this cable here and you plug in, let's say this is the line in for the club, so then you plug in here. Now you're plugged into their sound system with a bridge. Okay, so we're gonna go through the next step in just a moment. Over here, this is to control the amount of volume that's coming into your monitoring studio speakers. So let's say, for example, if you're in the club and you have two monitoring speakers by the DJ stand, you would switch to booth to put up the volume of how much gain you want on those monitor speakers. Or if you want to pump up the volume to the main club sound system, you would switch to main by just moving this over. So now you can adjust the gain for the club sound system when you have this switcher switched onto the main. Okay, and also over here, this is the gain for the mic. So once you engage the mic on in the front of the Traktor Kontrol S2 with the button that says engage, you would get another quarter jack and just plug in here, and then plug in your mic with a line in, and then now from here you can adjust the gain of the mic. So if you want to be talking or do some shoutouts or stuff, you would just plug the mic in here with a quarter jack and adjust the gain. See, I've plugged in my USB to the computer from the controller, and it really has a nice color scheme when it turns on. Check this out. Really nice. And you'll know it's on when you see this orange USB light here turn on. Okay? So I'm going to show you now how to use some basic functions to get you started on the Traktor Pro 2 over here in just a moment. Alright guys, we are now plugged in to Traktor Pro 2, as you can see here on my computer screen. And I'm going to show you how this pretty much works to mess around with the program here. So I'm just going to play this track here just to show you some of the mechanics. Okay, so the track is playing now, and let's take a look over here. So over here we have the Q button here, and the Q button is to listen to this in your headphones. As you can see over here in Traktor, once I press that button, the headphones light up on the program here, which means you're allowed to hear this. So let's say, for example, if I'm queuing up another track, for example, let's say instead of this track playing, it's this one. Let's say that's the track that's playing, right? Okay? That means when I have Q pressed on this, that means, see how I'm scrolling through this and you can't hear if I'm scratching or something. That means that I can listen to what I want to play next and how to blend this in and change the pitch and tempo to match with the same BPM as this track over here. Okay? So also another good function that this has is that if I press the one that's right here, this is essentially a hot cue. Okay, so that cue takes me right back to the beginning of this track. So let's say, for example, if I was playing the track, let's say from right here. Okay, I'm gonna bring the crossfader to the left now, so you can hear the track. Okay, so you hear the track now. Now when I press the one over here, watch what happens. You'll see that it starts from the beginning again. Okay, so that's a cool feature that this has. And pretty much if you want to set up hot cues, you essentially have 4 hot cues here to set up on your tracks. And it's pretty easy to set up these hot cues. You pretty much just would go over a part of a track that you want to be the hot cue. So let's say this part over here. Let's find a part. So let's say we want this part to be the hot cue. So if we want that to be the hot cue, now that we have it spot on, I'm going to go to my turntables here on the controller and I'm going to press 2. So now when I go back to the program, you're going to see that now that is my second hot cue. Okay, so now I have 2 hot cues. I have 1. So let me just press play. So I have 1 and I have 2. And let's take a look here on how that works. So this Q1, and then this is Q2. See? So you could play around with that. And good things of having hot cues is that you could pretty much make like your own type of rhythm when you are mixing. So see, you have that. Okay. Okay. And you can also just do the cue from here. See? You can do the cue from there. And over here we have the sync button, which is pretty much to automatically sync the tracks to the same BPM. And you also have this on the other side here. So the reason why you see that these two hotkeys here and these two hotkeys here is because I have 2 tracks and I set up 2 hotkeys for them already. Okay. If you press shift and play, what it initially does is that it makes sure that when you're playing the track and you're speeding it up over here, it does not change the pitch of the song. So I'll show you how that works. So let's press play and I'm going to show you how this works. Okay. Now before I continue, notice how I haven't pressed shift and play yet. That means the pitch will change when I change the tempo. Okay. So take a look at this. So now it sounds like kind of like Alvin Chipmunks kind of thing, right? So I'm gonna bring the tempo back to where it was. Now, if I press shift and play like this, you'll see here that now this little note turns on, and that is the key lock. And now what that does is that when I press that and I press play, the track will just speed up. Let me stop the music so you can hear. Put it low. So what it does is that it'll speed up the track without changing the initial pitch of the song, which is something good that you want to have if you are trying to blend 2 songs that are on ideally the same note. Okay. You also have a filter. So the way how you turn on filter is by holding shift and then pressing the gain filter here. So the gain filter here is initially to put up the volume of the song, to add additional volume to it. But if you press shift and gain, what you get now is that you can mess with the filter. See? So I'm gonna play the song and you can see how it kind of works. So it creates like this weird kind of effect. Okay, and that's just showing you some basic functions of how to get started and how to mess around with the program. So remember to use the filter for each track, which is this over here. What you want to do is on the controller you want to hold shift and then use the gain filter here, so then you could change it around. Okay, so let's start this track again from the beginning. So it's there. Okay, now when you press this here, this knob here, what it does is that it creates a loop. You see how the loop is going, and you can loop this up to 32 bars, so you have time to mix and add like different things going on to your other track. Okay, and you could change how much of the loop you want by simply turning this knob either left or right. Now if you change it to the left, you'll notice that I dropped it down to 16 bars, and as I keep turning the knob to the left, I'll have less and less. So you'll notice that here. So you just keep turning. Okay. The thing we should go over is how to use these effects up here. Okay. So ideally when you first open up the Traktor program, it'll usually have delay, reverb, and flanger on both sides of the effects units on both decks. But for me, I usually use delay, reverb, and flanger on the left, and beat slicer or beat masher on the right. And that doesn't mean that you can just use one effects on just one side, because on the controller itself you'll see that, let's say if I have sound effects 1, I could turn on sound effects 1 here, okay, and then to actually use the effect you will go to this knob here that says dry wet, and you just press it here to turn it on, okay. So once that's on, you hear some kind of like a beat masher thing going on, okay. But you can also use different effects too. So if I want to use, for example, let's say sound effects 2 from over here, I can just press number 2 here and then go over here where 2 would be and just press this to turn it on. Okay, so now you have 1 and 2 running into deck A. So now I'm using both effects. Okay. Oh yeah, and that's another thing. If you don't turn off the effects, it'll just keep looping a certain effect that it added to the track. Okay. Over here you have ability to access your remix decks by pressing A and B, and then choosing which side of the deck you want to hear, of which side of the remix deck. I don't initially use this because I just use the 2 decks to mix. But if you're a type of DJ that likes to use more than 2 different tracks to mix, you can use these here. And another thing I wanted to point out also is that this tempo fader here is pretty accurate to how you want to beat match. It gets the numbers pretty close enough to the point where you can mix invincibly on the go. So this is a really good tempo fader. I'm not saying it's better than the ones on the CDJ Pioneers, but it's pretty damn close. So that's a really good thing to have here with these turntables. Alright guys, thank you for watching this video, and I hope this helped anybody who just got a Traktor Kontrol S2 MK2 to get started and basically start jamming and learning like the basic functionalities of how this controller works with the program itself. If you guys have any questions, you can leave them below, and I'll try to answer them with another video or so. Alright, take care guys.